All right, beautiful morning out here in Sebastopol, California. Today we're going to be digging out an old leach line, removing the pipe and drain rock, and reinstalling new drain rock and new perf pipe out this direction here. So the property owners located the distribution box here for us, which is very helpful. And our scope of work is just to dig out the old and put in new. We'll probably be tackling that big blackberry bush out there, but looks like it's going to be roughly 80 feet of leach line or so. So if you're interested in learning how to install a standard leach line, this would be a good video for you. So let's get started. And so I got the laser set up. I just need to shoot the outlet hole on that D box, and then we can get started removing the old leach line. So Orenco pipe, if you haven't or you're not familiar with it, it's an old asphaltic paperish material, and you can break it just like that. Pretty brittle stuff, but what's important for me right now is just to get some of this old pipe out of the way so I can shoot the bottom of the hole in the D box and have that for the top of drain rock when we eventually install the new drain rock. So just get it exposed a little bit. I'm actually just resting the bottom of that reader stick on the bottom of the old pipe that's there. All right, so I got my laser read, and here in Sonoma County, the first 4 to 5 feet of trench is actually going to be at the elevation of that outlet hole. I call that the shelf, and then it's going to drop down at least another 12 inches for the bottom of trench for the gravel portion. So this first 4 to 5 feet will be solid pipe, then it'll transition to perf pipe and be perf pipe and drain rock all the way out. So I'm making these marks right here at 5 feet out from the D box. This is where the trench is going to drop down and become deeper to the full depth of trench. Just started trenching the very bottom depth of leach line trench there. So what we have is D box, 4 to 5 feet of what I call shelf. That's at the same elevation as the hole on the D box or your flow line of your pipe. At the pink mark, that's that 5 foot mark, we drop down our trench another 12 inches deep. That's minimum here in Sonoma County. And then we're going to maintain a level trench bottom all the way across to the end of the line. And typically what we do for a new leach line install is we would shoot the contour and our trench would follow the contour. The bottom of the trench would be level, the depth of the trench would be the same all the way across. But in this case, we're not really doing that. We're just following this old leach line. So it's kind of hard to say. Hopefully it was installed on contour way back when, but I can already tell we're gonna have some areas behind the machine here where the trench is gonna get a little shallower and then become a little bit deeper. So we're ready to just keep digging at the full trench depth. So that's what we're gonna do. So as I'm trenching along, I'm just every so often going to shoot the bottom of the trench and make sure that we're maintaining that level trench bottom. Because when that effluent comes into your gravel bed here in your leach line, you want it to be able to spread out along the bottom of the trench through the drain rock evenly all the way across your leach line. And that's one of the reasons why you want your trench bottom to be level. So let's keep digging. Done. Ran out of storage on my little micro SD card. Had to go get another one. But anyways, we're trenched down to almost to the end. Just limit up some of these apple trees here because we're going to come down this avenue, come in perpendicular to the trench and gravel. So just got last little bit to dig out. Real easy digging out here. Super soft sandy soils. But we're still chasing drain rock. Silt, sand, some perforations on it, but not good. All right, guys, we have reached the end of the leach line. So again, we were just digging out the old leach line, and we are very close to the property line. Probably 6 feet away or so. And the setback here in Sonoma County is 5 feet from a leach line to a property line. That's from side of trench to property line. But anyways, this is just the last little bit of drain rock that was in the trench originally built. And so just gonna clean out the little bit of loose material there. And we are ready to start graveling. All right, so we dug the shelf out from the D-box about 4 or 5 feet, and we've dropped our trench elevation all the way to the bottom, 12 inches from the shelf down to the total bottom of the trench. And so what we're gonna do now, because we're gonna start placing our gravel for the pipe, for the perforated pipe to rest on, is we need to adjust our laser receiver on our stick. We're going to adjust the receiver down 1 foot, because when you adjust your receiver down, that means your grade is coming up. So now we're set to go for placing our drain rock at 12 inches thick through the whole trench. Time to place some rock. So all we're doing is just leveling out these scoops as they're brought in. Grant's gonna dump one in, I'm gonna level it out, and hopefully I can keep up with Grant. That's the goal for me in the trench, is to be able to level out these loads as fast as he can bring them to me, which sometimes works better for me when Grant is in the gravel piles further away, but leveling it out. So what I like to tell my guys when you're leveling out leach line gravel is you don't have to go for that dead level beep, but you want a consistent beep. You don't want to go from a fast beep, meaning your grade's high, to a slow beep, meaning your grade's low, back and forth, back and forth. Just level out your rock, whether it's just a slightly low beep or a high beep, just stick with that and carry it all the way down the trench line. So you can see I'm just hovering just below a level beep, a dead level beep, just below that. I'm gonna try to stick with that down the rest of the trench, and that will ensure that our perf pipe isn't going up and down the whole way down the trench line. We just want it to be nice and consistent and level. Another thing I like to do, Grant's waiting for me to move you out of the way a little bit further. So another thing I like to do when I'm bringing my loader in to dump the rock, I like to stack it a little bit on what's here, and that way I have plenty of rock to just level out that way. You need to dump some more rock out? Not yet. The old boot stomp. like it. All right, pretty simple, right? That's just the process. Dump a load of rock. Depending on the dimensions of your trench and the size of your loader bucket, sometimes it's a half a loader bucket per bucket width.
Yeah, gotta dump some more rock.
Sometimes it's one loader bucket per bucket width. But anyways, depending on your trench dimension again and the size of your loader bucket or how big of a scoop your guy makes, kind of depends on how far you separate your piles when you dump them, whether you stack that next loader bucket scoop a quarter onto what you spread or less. But anyways, yep, moving along. Grant's got to dump a little bit more rock out. We got a pretty small pile location, so this is gonna move along pretty quick. Once we get all this gravel leveled out, then we'll go ahead and set the pipe in, and then we'll place more drain rock over the top of that. All right, so we've gravelled all the way down to the end of the trench. So we have our 12-inch thick gravel layer, 2 feet wide, leveled out here in the trench. I flopped down some 4-inch perf pipe so it's ready to go. Grant is waiting for me with a loaded bucket full of drain rock. And the next step now is setting the pipe and placing rock over the top of the pipe. And I like to get a couple pieces of pipe in the trench, get some rock on it, and then rock over the pipe as I'm putting the pipe together down the trench. Just makes it a little easier with the rock on top of the pipe, keeping it steady. So let's do a few sticks. You'll see how that's done. But really easy process. So yeah, I always start with the bell end pointing towards the box. The perforations are pointing down, not straight down, but evenly downward. And I'll get this pipe covered over with some drain rock, and then just start connecting the pipes and covering with drain rock as we go. So let's do it. So when you're one guy working in the trench with the pipe, what I like to do is initially get at least one end of that pipe kind of set with some rock, and then come over to the outgoing end, this end, and be able to hold my foot on that while the loader's dumping the rock. Because if you don't, sometimes the loader will dump too much rock on one side or the other, and that'll push your pipe from one side of the trench to the other. And so we're able to avoid doing that by locking in the pipe, at least on one end, and I can hold the opposite end with my foot or the shovel. So right, got the first section of pipe blocked in with gravel, and now I'm just gonna stay over on that side and be able to put those pieces of pipe together. I'll dump them out if there's any drain rock that has gotten on the inside of those loose pieces of pipe, and then assemble those pieces of pipe and hold my foot on the pipe while Grant dumps. And you really want your loader operator to dump nice and slow to avoid pushing that pipe off to one side or the other. You can see the pipe's pushed just a little bit, but there's a curve here in the trench that will get straightened out here shortly. But yeah, time to rock and roll. This rock out, if you can see the drain rock, or if you can see the pipe through the drain rock, that means you don't have enough drain rock over the top of the pipe. So what I like to do is just go through and just check like that, right? Pop your shovel down and just verify that, you know, number one, you got enough cover, 2 to 3 inches, and number two, that you don't have too much gravel over the top of your pipe, because then you're kind of just wasting money putting too much rock in the trench. So quick check here and there. Yep. And if you really have to dig to try to find the pipe, you got too much rock over the top.
All right, we have our leach line completed, graveled over the top of the pipe all the way down to the end. I put an styrene end cap or an SDR 35 sized end cap over the end of that pipe, and filter fabrics covering the whole thing all the way down. What I'm going to do really quick just to check my work is I'm going to pull a little gravel back, and with the laser adjust the reader stick for top of pipe. I'm going to shoot the end, middle, and beginning, and we want the pipe to have a consistent read throughout, be within an inch or two. In Sonoma County, what's acceptable is a 3-inch difference in 100 feet or an 1.5 inch difference in 50 feet, and you can do the math for 25 feet, 3/4 of an inch or something like that. So that's the kind of play that we are working with, but we're going to check the pipe in 3 spots since we're a little over 90 feet in length, and that way I'll be happy and ready for inspection, and then we'll have to make the connection to the distribution box. Don't know if you guys can notice, but my stick got a little damaged right here. We had a little cave in the trench, and sidewall of that trench came down and bent the stick, and then we straightened it back out. But pretty sandy soil here. Always be careful in trenches, guys. Even little tiny cave-ins can be pretty damaging. You know, that's a piece of aluminum rod. It's not that strong, but neither is your knee. Imagine that chunk of dirt coming down sideways on your knee. That would hurt. It would probably break your knee or your leg. So we're gonna check one more spot here in the center. Okay, that's good. That was 0.3 of an inch higher than the end of the pipe. And now we're going to check the very, very beginning of the pipe. And that is 0.7 inches higher than the very, very end of the pipe. So we are less than an inch within range on this pipe, which is much better than the requirement of 3 inches in this length of trench. So we did good. All right, good morning. Day 2 here. We're back. I just have to make the connection from the leach line to the existing D-box here. So we're just going to cut a short section of SDR 35. So I have to mortar where the pipe meets the distribution box here. And what I like to do before I do the mortaring is get some dirt around the pipe and get it bedded and locked into place. That way when we go to backfill, it's not bouncing around and we wouldn't risk breaking the mortar joint right there. So we're just gonna get a little dirt around it, tamp it in a little bit. Whoop. All right, there we have it. So that's our solid piece of pipe connecting the D-box to the leach line. All right, good news. Just had our inspection out here. Inspection went great. First time meeting this inspector. And what we did for the inspection was we measured the length of the line that we installed. The inspector probed the depth of gravel to verify that we were achieving the 12 inches of drain rock under the perforated pipe. By probing with the soil probe, you're able to probe down with little bursts, and you can feel and hear the drain rock as the probe's going through the drain rock. And that's how you can kind of tell once you hit that soil transition at the bottom of the drain rock. You're able to pull the probe out, measure it, and verify depth of drain rock that way. And we laser shot in the pipeline. It shot in good. We were within an inch. It was like 0.7 of an inch from the beginning, middle, and end. So we were really close throughout. And the inspector looked at the tank. And yeah. So we're ready to do some backfill and get this place cleaned up. All right, and the last thing I'm gonna do before I backfill is I'm gonna put some rebar down. I'm gonna just lay it flat like that on top of the lid of the D-box. I'm gonna put one at the middle of the trench, roughly. Yeah, somewhere about here, just like so. And one down at the end. All right, now we're ready to backfill. All right, well, thanks for joining me on this little leach line repair project. As you can see, pretty straightforward. You follow the few simple steps and anybody can do it, really. And if any of you guys out there are going to be doing something like this yourself and you're just not sure and you have a question, don't hesitate, hit me up in the comments. I'll try to get back to you and hopefully I can be helpful to you. But keep in mind that the codes and how things are done vary across the states and across the world. But anyways, thanks again for watching, guys. You be safe out there, and we'll catch you next time. Over and out.